Let's talk about some awesome neighborhoods here in Sarasota. So often people will tell me that, yeah, I've been to Sarasota, but they pretty much go from the airport to the beaches, or if they're driving down from I-75 from the exit out, to the barrier islands, and they miss so much in between. They don't know what real neighborhoods look like besides those are out on the water. So that's why I like digging in a little bit deeper into these videos. Now, of course, what makes a neighborhood great or a property great is really quite subjective because it depends on the style of the homes, the price point, the location. There's so much more that goes into it, and plus the pros and cons. So that's why I like to dig in a little bit deeper and talk more specifically about some of these neighborhoods to help you figure out what type of property might be a good fit for you. So in this video today, I'm going to cover 3 separate neighborhoods. Hi, I'm Jill Thomas, and each week I bring new videos and fresh content about living in the Sarasota area, what it's like to live here in Florida, and then of course I like to cover some real estate. So if this has been on your radar for a while, then this is the channel for you. Be sure to tap that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and then keep on watching my videos. Now, when you get to the point where you really have more questions that aren't getting answered by some of the videos, maybe you have really specific circumstances, then please give me a call, text, or email me. I'm happy to help you out, answer those questions to figure out what and when is the next best move for you. Okay, so now this video is going to be a little oaky. What does that mean? Well, all of the neighborhoods that I chose for this video have the word oak in it. Not like the laurel oak that fell down in my front yard, cut just right in half. It looked really healthy on the outside, but it was dead on the inside. Thankfully, it did not hit my house, it hit my roof. But we do have a lot of oak trees here, so as a result, a lot of neighborhoods have the word oak in them. Now, keep in mind that as I go through this video, if you think, oh, you know what, none of these neighborhoods really are a true match for what I'm looking for, I would recommend that you keep watching, because even though I might not be talking about a specific neighborhood or types of property that are a perfect match for you, I do have a lot of other information packed in this. And so you might learn some things that you can apply to the type of property that you are looking for. These things aren't necessarily just exclusive to these 3 neighborhoods or even just one of these neighborhoods. It could be applied most likely to a lot of other areas as well. So just keep that in mind as you're watching the video. Okay, our first oak I want to cover is a baby oak, and it's Arbor Oaks. I call Arbor Oaks a baby oak in comparison to the other 2 communities because it is a small community. There's only 34 homes on one street. So you go down that road, there's a cul-de-sac at the end, you can turn around and come right back out. That's all there is to it. Now, Arbor Oaks is right off of Fruitville Road at the north end of McIntosh, because McIntosh ends right there. And then it keeps going way farther south to the south end of Sarasota. And what's nice too about Arbor Oaks is it's right between I-75 and 41. Now remember, 41 is farthest west. It runs north and south from Tampa to Miami. So that's why we call it Tamiami Trail or 41, or we also call it the trail. And then you've got I-75 that runs parallel to 41 most of the way down. So that's what's really great about this area, is that location. Now, it's not unusual in our area to see some of these neighborhoods like this that are just maybe 1 street, 2 streets long or deep. Sometimes they're maybe L-shaped. They'll come down and turn left or right as you go down to the end of the main road. Because what happens is a builder or developer will come in and maybe buy an old farm or something like that, and then they're permitted to develop that and separate it, break down the lots, and then build separate homes on there. So that's how they kind of squeeze our newer homes in, mixed into some of the older neighborhoods. Now, most of the homes in Arbor Oaks was built in the mid-90s and in the early 2000s. And they're pretty good sized homes. You're gonna see 1 and 2 story homes. The lots are between 6,000 and 9,000 square feet. There's a few that are a little bit more, even like 12,000 square feet, but just a few of them. And then the views from the lots vary. Some of them are on a water or a pond view. And now keep in mind, when I say water or pond in a subdivision like this, I'm talking about really a retention pond. It was man-made when they developed the area to help with all of our rains and everything that goes on with that. So if you hear me say, typically if you hear me say a lake, pond, water view, and I'm on the mainland, it means a retention pond. So you don't even want to go in this water. So don't plan on like kayaking or doing a stand-up paddle board or anything like that in that water. You don't want to get in there. And usually they're not even super big, but it's a nice little view to have because you can see fish and birds and turtles and things like that. My parents have that, and it's really, really pretty. So some of them are a lake view, some are backed up to another home, some are a little bit of a preserve view, and there's actually an apartment building on the one side of the neighborhood. So back farther, there's a couple homes that really are backed up more to this apartment complex, and so there's potential for some noise there. And then way on the other side, there's more preserve, and I'm not sure who owns that land or what is a potential future use of that land. So in the future, that could change. So you guys have to keep that in mind when you see, just trees and stuff behind properties, unless it's already in a part of the subdivision that's owned by the whole subdivision, then you're safe. Now there is a homeowners association, and the HOA dues are $700 a year. Now let's talk about the prices. Now before I really dig into the numbers, let me preface this and keep this in mind as I talk about the other neighborhoods too. I'm making this video in July of 2021, and even my last video that I did, episode 69, it was about the current market. And if you recall, even if you're watching this months or down the road or even a year from now, the market really is changing and prices are going up. So whatever numbers I use in this video for past sales, it doesn't necessarily mean that's what the property would sell for today. It's just such a changing market. It's kind of a wild ride right now. But I think these numbers are enough just to sort of give you a little bit of a handle on what to expect. So in Arbor Lakes, believe it or not, there was 3 sales so far this year, and for such a little neighborhood compared to the others that we talk about, I was really surprised by those. Now they were in January and March, so they weren't super current, but good enough. We've got to go with something at the moment. So those 3 sales ran between $400,000 and $475,000. Now let's cover those pros and cons. First of all, a pro is I think this is a really great location, especially for having newer homes. As I already mentioned, how these developers go in and kind of grab pieces of land here and there that they can develop. And so I think that's really nice. As I already mentioned, you're close to 75, so you can, if you need to head north, if you need to commute or get up to the Tampa airport, super easy drive. If you want to go downtown or to the beaches, you just hop on Fruitville, go west. You're going to run right into downtown Sarasota, and then the Ringling Bridge is right there. You can go to St. Armands, go to Lido, and then other beaches are really close by. And then just slightly northeast is UTC, or University Town Center, Lakewood Ranch, where there's a lot of activities and really good shopping and great restaurants. So there's so much really close by, whether it's just 5 minutes away or with a 15-minute drive to downtown, or even less depending on the traffic. You're so close to everything. So I think that is superb. Also, it is not in a flood zone, and none of the properties are in this community, so that's awesome. I get a lot of people that ask me about that, so I want to point that out. And then, as I think I already kind of mentioned, I think for the location, the age of the homes, the style of the homes, the prices are pretty good. I don't think that they're crazy numbers when you compare it to other areas. Now let's talk about the cons. Let's talk about some of the negatives about Arbor Oaks. As I already mentioned, with the views or what the lots are backed up to, there's a couple that are near that apartment complex, and I've never been in those backyards, so I really don't know what the reality of it would be like being there. Maybe it's in a section that's still super quiet, but maybe not. And there's also a couple homes that are pretty much backed up to Fruitville Road, so you're gonna get a lot of noise from the traffic, and then honestly, just more dirt and debris just from the road. It's not that you sense it. It's not like a big cloud of dust coming through all the time, but your lanai and your home's gonna get a little bit more dirty than if it wasn't backed up to a road. As I already mentioned, it is in a homeowners association, so of course they have a set of rules. So we need to get your hands on those association docs so you can tell if there's any rules that might not be a good fit for your lifestyle. For instance, I know that fences are not permitted, so if you wanted a fence for having little kids, you couldn't do it. Now you could have an electric fence for dogs, but maybe that might not be a good fit. I know there's some bigger dogs that can blow right through those electric fences. It doesn't faze them. So you have to keep those kinds of things in mind. That could be a deterrent. Now, with these homes being built in the 90s and even in the early 2000s, there's a lot of things we need to look for in terms of the condition of the home, and just not the cosmetic things. I'm talking about the roof, the AC, maybe even the hot water tank, some of those things. The home's starting to get a little bit more wear and tear now, and it's really broken in. So even though the house isn't super old, like some of our old homes built in the 50s and 60s and 70s, it's still old enough now where it really has maybe been beat up a little bit more. And the important thing to think about with those roofs are, if roof isn't actually super newer, you're gonna have maybe issues with getting homeowners insurance or paying a lot of money for homeowners insurance. A lot of these homes have shingle roofs, and so if the roof is original from the 90s or even from 2000, 2001, we could have some problems with that. I'm under contract right now with a house, and the roof was last replaced in 96, and it's free of leaks, but I cannot get insurance, or the buyer can't get insurance for it. I've called a bunch of insurance agents, and so thankfully the seller is putting on a new roof, but they'd have to deal with that with any buyer, so they were willing to do that. So that worked out really good. So you really want to watch those kinds of things, even though the house isn't super old like you would think about with something from the mid-century. Now, being in a smaller community is nice. It can be really nice, but because there's only 34 homes, if the neighborhood had a serious need and it required, some money, and there wasn't money in reserves for it from your HOA dues, that they're going to be looking to the homeowners to cover those expenses or that expense. And because there's not a lot of people to shoulder that expense, it's going to be more money out of your pocket. So you want to keep that in mind too. Honestly, I think $700 a year for that little street is kind of a lot. I'm not really sure what the dues go towards. I wasn't able to get my hands on the financials prior to making this video, so I would hope that the reserves are pretty healthy, even if they are responsible for their own road, for repaving that every few years. So I would hope that you wouldn't have too many issues with it, but you got to keep that in mind even in other neighborhoods. So that's Arbor Lakes, our baby oak. All right, our next oak is a little bit bigger, our medium-sized oak, and this neighborhood is called 3 Oaks. And the reason why I call it a little bit bigger, medium size, is because there's about 275 homes in this community. Now, 3 Oaks is off of Proctor Road, kind of between Cattleman and Honore. And it actually goes on both sides of Proctor. There's 2 sections to it. So that's 3 Oaks. Now, if you're familiar at all with Sarasota and our exits off of I-75, there's Fruitville Road, which is north, and then next is Bee Ridge, and then Clark. So 3 Oaks is between Bee Ridge and Clark Road. Now, I do call it the medium oak, but only because of the number of homes inside the community. Actually, these homes are bigger than the other 2 neighborhoods I'm going to talk about, or, of the 2 that I'm talking about. The homes run between 2,000 and 3,000 square feet, and some are even bigger than that, like even closer to 3,500 square feet. And all the lots are bigger. At a minimum, they're 10,000 square feet. Some are up to 12,000 or a little bit more. And all these homes were built in the late 90s and early 2000s. So they're not super old. They're not brand new, but they're not super old, especially for the location. Of course, there is an HOA, Homeowners Association, and so those annual dues are $450. Now let's talk about prices in 3 Oaks. I was able to go back 90 days. I can't remember if there was 4 or 5 homes that have closed. So that was pretty good for a little bit more current analysis. And those prices run between $500,000 and $650,000. And like I mentioned with Arbor Oaks, again, the market's changing. So don't think that if you called me in a month from now that you could buy a house in 3 Oaks for $500,000. First, we gotta wait for one to come on the market, and then the prices may have gone up. So instead of paying $500, it could be $520, or something like that. So we have to keep an eye on those things. All right, pros and cons. All right, as I already mentioned, I think 3 Oaks is nice because you got a little bit more elbow room between you and your neighbors because the lots are a little bit bigger. And then also even within the house, you got a little bit more elbow room too, because of the layout of these properties. And a lot of them will even have a 4th bedroom or 3 bedrooms with a den, because they're a little bit healthier in size. So it's a good area in terms of space. And then we're still in a really great central location in Sarasota. So even though the road that it's directly off of doesn't take you straight to I-75, you're gonna still get there in just a snap. They're right around the corner. It's not a problem. And actually it's kind of nice because the entryways to Three Oaks, it's a little bit more quiet than something like Fruitville Road, where Arbor Oaks is at. And then also, so you can still get to downtown, you can still get to the beaches. In fact, if you take Proctor west, you run into 41 or Tamiami Trail, and then you can go left or right, go north or south on 41, and pick up either which bridge you want to take out to Siesta Key, or you can go straight to downtown. So it's still really easy. And then there's Walmart like right around the corner from it, there off of Cattleman Road. So it's still a really great location. Now we got to talk about the cons. Just like Arbor Oaks, this neighborhood is not super old, but just old enough where you could be having some problems, or you're gonna be looking at replacing some things. So again, we gotta watch those roofs, watch the AC systems, all of that. Now, as I'm talking about roofs, in Three Oaks, all the roofs have a tile roof. And so some associations will say this is the kind of roof that you have to have on your property. So tile roofs can be a little bit more high maintenance because they do have to be pressure washed on occasion. Otherwise they get really dirty and mildewy looking. But you got to get the right person up there to do that, because they can crack those tiles, and then you have to get the roofer out to replace them. So even though they look really nice, there's more to it than dealing with a shingle roof. So in Florida, in terms of lifespan, with the roofs, you got your shingle, your tile, and then a metal roof. And it goes in that order for price too. So shingle's least expensive, and then metal is the most expensive. So with those tile roofs, I'd have to check with an insurance agent to see how difficult it would be to get insurance. They might maybe want a report that says that there's so much life left on the roof, or it's free of leaks, things like that. So it can get a little bit more difficult. So I want you to keep that in mind, whether it's Three Oaks or another neighborhood, when we're talking about any of the roofs. It's a big, big deal right now. And then as always, watch those HOA rules. Make sure that it's a good fit for you and that you're not going to be limited on the things that you'd like to do with your property. So there we are. Three Oaks are medium oak, or I want to say mama oak. Like we got baby, like, bear, mama bear, papa bear, baby bear. So this is like mama oak. I don't know. It's kind of dorky. Sorry. All right. Our last oak, our big oak, papa oak. It's Colonial Oaks, and Colonial Oaks is a really popular neighborhood. And the reason why I call it the Papa Oak is because there are over 600 homes in this neighborhood. So it's pretty big. Now, Colonial Oak is just north of Weber, between Cattleman and Honore, and that's just west of I-75. So Cattleman and Honore, and the entryways to Colonial Oaks, there's one at each of these roads. There's none off of Weber at all. And so it's this nice big neighborhood. Now these homes were built in the late 80s and early 90s. So they're gonna be a little bit older than those other properties that we talked about. They're a little bit smaller because they could be just maybe 1,000, 1,100 square feet, up to about 2,000 square feet or so. So a little bit more modest in size, and same thing with the lots. They're gonna be 7,000 to 9,000 square feet. There's a few that are a little bit bigger than that, maybe even just north of 10,000 square feet, but not too many. So a little bit smaller homes, older homes, smaller lots. Now the HOA dues in Colonial Oaks is only $300 a year. So you can see as the neighborhood gets bigger, the HOA dues get a little bit smaller because again, you've got more people shouldering that expense and covering that for everything that needs to be taken care of. Now the prices in the last 90 days, there were about 5 sales in there, and they range between $350,000 and about $475,000, $476,000. So you can see smaller house, smaller lots, smaller price points. So that really does factor in there. But Colonial Oaks is hugely popular. A lot of people like living in there. Now here are some of the pros. Even though the homes are older, something that they were doing right starting there in the 80s, I'm not exactly sure about which year, is they're starting to elevate some of the ceilings. Now, you're not going to see high ceilings in all the rooms like you might in one of the newer homes that would be in 3 Oaks or Arbor Oaks, but at least when you walk into the house, a lot of these homes, the living room ceiling is vaulted. That's elevated a bit. Sometimes it carries over into the kitchen, so it does give it a little bit nicer, bigger feel. So I do like that with these properties, that they're starting to compromise here with some of these things, or improve them, I guess is a better word. And again, excellent location. I mean, it's just like with Arbor Oaks and 3 Oaks. This neighborhood is pretty much right in between the two. So you're close to 75. You can easily head west to go downtown, go to the beaches, close to shopping, restaurants, everything that you might need, or even if you have to commute farther north or south and hop on I-75. It's superior, you know, it's just a great area. Now the final pro is actually in Colonial Oaks. There is Colonial Oaks Park, and it's actually open to the community. Anybody can go there because this neighborhood's not gated, neither are the other two. I forgot to mention that. So, but Colonial Oaks Park is big. There's a big field, there's tennis courts, pickleball courts, a basketball court, playground, there's a pavilion, a covered pavilion there. And then also there's actually like a rec center, rec facility with a smaller gymnasium in there. There's some other rooms. There's somebody who actually staffs it. There's somebody that's there during the week. I think you can take some classes there on occasion. So that's sort of a nice asset to have. And even though, like I said, the outside people can come in, but it's just so convenient for you to live there that you could walk or bike there, meet up with friends or family, and use those facilities. So that's really, really nice, is Colonial Oaks Park. Now we do have to talk about some of the cons, you know, so we think, okay, well, yeah, a little bit older homes, but they've got potential. You know, we got the park there, price point's good, location's good, but you gotta know, a good section of the neighborhood is in a flood zone, and it's more on this map. You'll see it's more to the west because Philippi Creek is right there. So if Philippi Creek were to swell, that's where we would have issues in this area. Now, sometimes the house was elevated enough where the flood zone only applies to part of the land and not to the structure. So in that case, you may not need flood insurance, but we'd have to check with an insurance agent. And some of the properties are 100% in the flood zone, and then some are not in the flood zone at all, and you're safe. So that's a big thing to keep in mind in Colonial Oaks, is the flood zones. And then another thing to think about in Colonial Oaks is some of the homes, there's just a small handful of them, it's like one section that has wood frame homes instead of block homes. So every house in Florida is at risk of having termites. But the wood frame house, obviously the whole house is wood, so you're at greater risk of that. And then of course maybe other complications as well because it's not a block home. So some people are okay with living in a wood frame house, some people aren't. It's up to you and what you would prefer to do. My first house was a wood frame house. I had to have it tented before because of those termites, so that's sort of a pain in the neck. But you just tent it and then the house is fine. The house was sound, so it's not like it was gonna all of a sudden collapse like you see in those cartoons when termites get to a piece of wood. So it's just something to be mindful of. And then again, just like with the other neighborhoods, this one is, the homes are a little bit older. So keep in mind, we gotta watch the roofs, the ACs and everything. But then not only that, but because they are a bit older, there's gonna probably be more cosmetic things that you may have issues with. Now some of the homes may have been beautifully updated, but some of them maybe not so much. So you're talking laminate countertops, old carpet, maybe border up around, the ceiling up there, maybe a lot of seafoam green. I remember in the late 80s, early 90s, my mom had a lot of border, a lot of seafoam green carpet, but it was cool at the time, not cool anymore. And sometimes you will see carpet from, back in the 80s and 90s, and it's kind of stinky and old and funky colors to us. So now my mom's trendy. I don't want to throw her under the bus. She does a beautiful job with her house and I love it. But back in the day, that was a cool thing. So you might see some of that in some of these homes. So there we are, Colonial Oaks, our Papa Oak, our Big Oak neighborhood. All right, a few things to mention about these neighborhoods that are similar. And so instead of me repeating myself too much from one neighborhood to the next, I'll mention them all at once. First of all, they are all on public water and sewer. So no well, no septic. Second of all, with the HOAs in these neighborhoods, you're going to be restricted on the kind of vehicles or adult toys you have outside, like campers, boats. You can't keep a work truck outside, anything like that, a trailer. Maybe you'd be permitted to leave a camper there for a day or two if you were cleaning it and loading it. We'd have to look at the association documents. But don't plan on being allowed to park those types of things outside on a permanent basis. These neighborhoods will not permit short-term rentals. We're in the county, so best case scenario would be 1 month minimum. Now, I did not dig into all the documents on this, but I would assume that you would only be permitted to have annual rentals. That's more of the nature of these neighborhoods. So you couldn't, definitely not Airbnb or something like that in these neighborhoods. It would just be more of a long-term tenant. Now, these neighborhoods do tend to be a little bit more cookie cutter. Colonial Oaks is probably a bit more eclectic because I think they have a bit more leeway in terms of choices in, for painting your house and things like that. But especially with 3 Oaks and Arbor Oaks, I think that they dictate that a little bit more on what you can do on the exterior of your property. So, but that's just the nature of these subdivisions, is they're not going to be super eclectic or like oozing with charm, things like that. But they're lovely, and they're well maintained. And then I mentioned this in a lot of my videos, so if you've listened to many of them, you've heard me say this before. But what I do like about these slightly older homes and not so new is that they tend to be wider. You have a better view looking out back. And even if your view out back is just a fence because there's a house on the other side, we're in the sunshine state. You want that sunshine to come in. You want to be able to enjoy the outdoors. With these newer homes, for 2,000 square feet, it's long and skinny. It's a narrow view. And so when you're looking at your side windows, you're looking at your neighbors. So this is better. I'd rather have a wider view and looking out back, regardless of what's on the other side of your property line. At least you've got some space. So that's what I really like about these older homes. And a lot of these properties do offer that. Okay, so there we go. We got our Papa Oak, our Colonial Oaks, Mama Oak, which is 3 Oaks, and then Baby Oaks, Arbor Oaks, because it's just such a small community. Now, we do have a lot of other neighborhoods, not just single family homes, but condos and villas that have the word oak in them. Now, some of the ones I really wanted to highlight, they're in gated communities, and I just couldn't figure out how to sneak my way into those neighborhoods this week in order to do video. I don't know, maybe when I'm inside some of these neighborhoods showing properties, I should ask the buyers, hey, can I just take some video for 5-10 minutes, drive around? But usually we are in a time crunch, so it doesn't always work out like that, but that would be kind of nice for me to build up my library. But anyway, so what do you guys think of these types of properties? Is it a good fit for you? And even if these are not your favorite neighborhoods, I hope that you did learn a few things, some good takeaways that you could apply to other neighborhoods or other properties that you might be interested in. And then, as always, don't forget, I'm here for you. If you have any questions, concerns, thoughts, don't be shy. Give me a call. I'm happy to help you out. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Have a great day.